The sound of my daughter-in-law's laughter still echoes in my ears 3 days later, sharp and mocking, like glass breaking against stone. "Oh, Bob," Jessica had said, holding up the wooden toy truck I'd spent weeks carving for my 5-year-old grandson Tyler. "Did you make this in some kind of senior citizen craft class?" She didn't know that the hands that carved that truck had built a $200 million empire. She didn't know that while she was laughing at my cheap Christmas gifts, I was secretly funding every aspect of her luxurious lifestyle. But in exactly 72 hours, she was going to find out, and her perfect little world was going to come crashing down around her designer heels. Let me start from the beginning, because this isn't just a story about a grandfather being humiliated. It's about secrets that run deeper than any family should have, and revenge so precisely calculated that even I'm impressed with how perfectly it's all falling into place. My name is Robert Mitchell, though everyone calls me Bob. I'm 68 years old, and for the past 5 years, I've been living with the daily frustration of watching my son's wife treat me like an embarrassing burden she has to tolerate. According to Jessica, I'm just a retired carpenter living on Social Security, driving a beat-up 2010 Honda Civic, and buying my clothes from thrift stores. What she doesn't know is that every assumption she's made about me is carefully orchestrated to hide the truth about who I really am. The irony would be hilarious if it weren't so painful. While Jessica posts Instagram photos of their $2.3 million house, their luxury cars, and their expensive vacations, bragging about their successful lifestyle, she has no idea that I'm the one paying for all of it. Every mortgage payment, every car lease, every credit card bill, it all flows through a complex network of trusts and investments that I've spent years perfecting to keep my identity hidden. You see, 40 years ago, I wasn't just a carpenter. I was a carpenter who got very lucky with some real estate investments and very smart about growing that luck into something much bigger. My late wife Margaret and I made a decision early on to live modestly while our assets grew exponentially. We wanted to protect our family from the kind of people who only valued us for our money, and we wanted to raise our son Michael with good values, not entitled expectations. It worked perfectly until Margaret died 3 years ago, and Michael married Jessica. The trouble started almost immediately. Jessica came from a family that valued appearances above everything else, and she couldn't understand why her father-in-law lived in a modest 3-bedroom house instead of a mansion, why he drove an old car instead of a luxury vehicle, why he shopped at Walmart instead of high-end stores. "It's embarrassing," she told Michael within my hearing range during their engagement party. "When people ask what your father does, I have to tell them he's a retired carpenter. Do you know how that makes us look?" That comment should have been my first warning about what kind of person Jessica really was. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt, thinking that maybe she was just nervous about fitting into a new family. Maybe she would learn to appreciate the values that Margaret and I had tried to instill in Michael. I was wrong. Over the past 5 years, Jessica's treatment of me has gone from barely concealed embarrassment to outright disrespect. She excludes me from family photos because she says I don't fit the aesthetic. She makes comments about my clothes, my car, my house, always with that fake, sweet smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She's even started limiting my time with my grandchildren, claiming that my lifestyle isn't appropriate for kids who are being raised with higher standards. But what really breaks my heart is how she's been slowly turning my son against me. Michael used to visit regularly, used to bring the kids over for weekends, used to call just to chat. Now, our conversations are stilted and awkward, and I can always hear Jessica in the background making comments about how they need to keep things brief because they have important places to be. The final straw came this past Christmas Eve, during what was supposed to be a family celebration at their house. I had spent months preparing gifts for Sophia and Tyler, a beautiful dollhouse I'd built from scratch for my 7-year-old granddaughter, complete with miniature furniture I'd carved by hand, and the toy truck for Tyler, painted in his favorite colors with working wheels that actually turned. I was so proud of those gifts. They represented hours of love, creativity, and craftsmanship. I'd put the same attention to detail into them that I once put into building custom homes for wealthy clients back when I was actively working. But when gift opening time came, and the children excitedly tore into the wrapping paper I'd carefully chosen, Jessica's reaction made my blood run cold. "Oh, my," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, as Sophia pulled the dollhouse out of its box. "Bob, did you make this yourself?" "Yes," I said proudly, kneeling down to show Sophia how the tiny doors opened and closed. "Look, sweetheart, this little family can live in here, and you can rearrange all the furniture however you want." Sophia was delighted, immediately starting to explore all the little rooms and details, but Jessica's expression was one of barely concealed horror. "How quaint," she said, then turned to Michael. "Honey, where are we going to put this?" "It's so large and handmade." The way she said handmade made it sound like a disease, but Tyler's reaction to his truck was what really made me happy. His whole face lit up as he pushed it across the floor, making engine noises and showing it to everyone in the room. "Look, Grandpa, the wheels really move, and there's a little man inside." "That's right, buddy," I said, getting down on the floor with him. "I painted him to look like a construction worker, just like Grandpa used to be." That's when Jessica delivered the crushing blow. "Oh, Bob," she said, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, including her parents, who were visiting for the holidays. "Did you make this in some kind of senior citizen craft class? It's so amateur." The room went quiet. Michael's face turned red, but he didn't say anything to defend me or his children's obvious joy in their gifts. Jessica's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, who had never liked me because I didn't meet their social standards, exchanged knowing looks. "I mean, it's sweet that you tried," Jessica continued, warming up to her audience. "But honestly, the kids are used to higher quality toys. Look at this paint job. It's so uneven, and the wood looks like it came from someone's garage." "Jessica," Michael finally spoke up, but his voice was weak, apologetic rather than defensive. "What?" she said innocently. "I'm just being honest. The children deserve the best, and these craft projects aren't really up to our standards." She then proceeded to present her gifts to the children. Expensive electronic toys that were probably made in factories overseas, flashy and impressive, but with no heart, no personal touch, no love embedded in every detail. "Now these," she said, as the children dutifully admired their new gadgets, "are real toys. From real toy stores. This is the kind of quality we want to surround our children with." I sat there on their expensive sofa, the sofa I had unknowingly helped pay for, and watched my handmade gifts get pushed aside in favor of mass-produced electronics. I watched my grandchildren get distracted by flashing lights and beeping sounds, abandoning the dollhouse and truck I'd poured my heart into. But what hurt most was watching my son say nothing. Michael, the boy I'd raised to stand up for what was right, to defend people who couldn't defend themselves, just sat there while his wife humiliated his father in front of the entire family. That night, driving home in my embarrassing Honda Civic, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done hiding. I was done protecting Jessica from the truth about who I really am and where their money comes from. I was done being treated like a burden by someone who wouldn't be able to afford her morning coffee without my secret support. It was time for Jessica Mitchell to learn exactly who she'd been insulting for the past 5 years. The next morning, December 26th, I called Amanda Wilson, my financial advisor, and the only person outside my lawyer who knows the full extent of my wealth. "Bob," Amanda answered on the second ring. "How was Christmas?" "Did you finally tell them the truth?" "Not yet," I said, settling into my kitchen chair with the coffee I'd made in my cheap Mr. Coffee machine. "But I'm ready to. I need you to prepare some documents for me." "What kind of documents?" "The kind that will show my dear daughter-in-law exactly where her money comes from. I want a complete breakdown of every payment I've made toward their lifestyle over the past 5 years, every mortgage payment, every car lease, every credit card bill I've covered through the Mitchell Family Trust." Amanda was quiet for a moment. "Bob, are you sure about this? Once this information is out there, you can't take it back. Your relationship with your son and his family will never be the same." "Amanda, my relationship with my son's family is already destroyed. Jessica has made sure of that. The only difference is that now she's going to understand exactly what she's lost." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to terminate all financial support for Michael and Jessica's lifestyle, effective immediately. I want their next mortgage payment to bounce. I want their car leases to go into default. I want their credit cards to get declined." "Bob, that's going to cause them serious financial problems very quickly." "Good. Let them experience the reality of their actual financial situation without my secret subsidies." "And then what?" "Then I'm going to invite them over for dinner, and I'm going to explain to Jessica exactly what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you." Over the next 5 days, I watched from the sidelines as Jessica's perfect world began to show its first cracks. Amanda had done exactly what I asked. All financial support flowing to Michael and Jessica's lifestyle had been quietly cut off. The beauty of my system was that they had no idea where their money really came from, so they wouldn't immediately understand why everything was suddenly falling apart. The first sign of trouble came on December 28th. Michael called me, his voice tight with stress. "Dad, we're having some issues with our mortgage company. They're saying our payment didn't go through, but that's impossible. We have automatic withdrawal set up." "That's strange, son." "Bank errors do happen sometimes, especially around the holidays. I'm sure you can sort it out." "Yeah, probably just a computer glitch, but it's weird because Jessica's car payment bounced too, and so did our American Express bill." I made appropriate sympathetic noises while privately marveling at how quickly the dominoes were falling. Michael and Jessica had been living so far above their actual means that even a few days without my secret subsidies was enough to cause cascading financial problems. "Are you going to be okay financially?" I asked, playing the concerned father perfectly. "Oh, yeah, we're fine." Michael makes good money at the law firm, and Jessica has her social media sponsorships. It's just annoying to deal with bank errors, you know? What Michael didn't know was that his good money as a junior associate at a mid-tier law firm was barely enough to cover their basic living expenses, let alone the luxury lifestyle Jessica demanded. And Jessica's social media sponsorships brought in maybe $500 a month, not exactly enough to maintain a $2.3 million house and 2 luxury car payments. For 5 years, I had been quietly making up the difference between their income and their expenses through a complex network of trusts and shell companies that made it look like Michael had inherited money from distant relatives, won small lotteries, received bonuses from his firm, and benefited from various investment opportunities that Amanda managed for them. None of it was true. It was all just me, funneling my money into their accounts in ways that would never be traced back to the poor father-in-law they treated with such contempt. On December 29th, the situation escalated. "Dad," Michael called again, this time with barely controlled panic in his voice. "Something's seriously wrong. The bank is saying we're behind on our mortgage by 3 months. 3 months. That's impossible." "How is that possible, son?" "I don't know. They're saying the payments we thought were going through were actually coming from some kind of trust fund that's been closed." "But we don't have any trust fund. At least, I don't think we do." I almost smiled. Amanda had done a beautiful job of making the financial trail look mysterious and complicated. "Maybe you should talk to a financial advisor, Michael. These kinds of banking issues can be very complex. Jessica's freaking out. She's convinced someone has stolen our identity or that the bank is trying to scam us. She's been on the phone for 3 hours trying to get answers." "I'm sure it will all work out," I said calmly. "These things usually do." But privately, I knew it wasn't going to work out. Not for Jessica, anyway. By the time she figured out what was really happening, it would be too late to undo the damage her attitude had caused. On December 30th, the day before our scheduled dinner, Michael called me in complete desperation. "Dad, we need help. We need to borrow money." There it was. The proud, successful son who had been too embarrassed by his father's poverty to defend him was now asking that same father for financial assistance. "How much money, Michael?" $15,000. Just temporarily, until we can figure out what's going on with our accounts. The mortgage company is threatening foreclosure proceedings if we don't bring the account current immediately. $15,000. To me, that was pocket change. To them, it was apparently a crisis that threatened their entire lifestyle. "Michael, I'm retired and living on Social Security. Where do you think I would get $15,000? I don't know, Dad. Maybe you could take it out of your savings? Or get a loan against your house?" The irony was breathtaking. He was asking me to mortgage my house to save his house, the house I had already been secretly paying for. But of course he didn't know that. "Son, I live paycheck to paycheck just like most retirees. I don't have that kind of money lying around." "But, Dad, you must have something saved up." "What about the money from Mom's life insurance? That money went to paying her medical bills and funeral expenses, Michael. You know that. Actually, Margaret's life insurance payout had been $2 million, but Michael didn't need to know that. As far as he was concerned, his father was a struggling retiree who couldn't afford to help even if he wanted to." "Then what are we supposed to do?" Michael's voice cracked. "Jessica is talking about having to sell the house. She's humiliated. Her parents are asking questions about our finances that we can't answer. I'm sorry you're going through this, son. But maybe this is a good opportunity to reevaluate your expenses, see if there are ways to live more within your means." "Live within our means? Dad, we're not living extravagantly. We have a nice house and nice cars, but nothing crazy." "A nice house?" That's what he called the $2.3 million estate with 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a 3-car garage, and a swimming pool. A house that cost more than most people would make in their entire lifetimes. "Well, I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're a smart young man." "Are you sure you can't help us at all? Even a few $1,000s would make a difference." Michael, tomorrow night when you come to dinner, we'll talk about everything. Maybe there are some solutions we haven't thought of yet. What kind of solutions? The kind that require complete honesty from everyone involved. At exactly 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve, Michael and Jessica arrived at my house. Jessica was dressed in what was obviously an expensive outfit, probably charged to one of the credit cards that was about to be canceled if she hadn't been paying attention to her bills. Her smile was tight and fake, the expression of someone who was barely tolerating an unpleasant obligation. "Hi, Dad," Michael said, giving me a hug that felt desperate. "Thanks for having us over." "Hello, Bob," Jessica said, air-kissing my cheek without actually making contact. "Your house smells interesting, very homey." The way she said homey made it clear that she didn't mean it as a compliment. "Thank you, Jessica. You look lovely as always. Please, come sit down. Dinner will be ready in just a few minutes." As they settled into my living room, I could see Jessica's eyes cataloging every detail of my modest furnishings with barely concealed disdain. The second-hand sofa, the discount store coffee table, the generic artwork I'd bought at garage sales. Everything confirmed her assumptions about my financial situation. "So, Dad," Michael said, clearly eager to address the elephant in the room, "have you given any thought to our conversation yesterday? About our financial situation?" "Yes, I have. But let's eat first. I think it's important to have this conversation on a full stomach." "What conversation?" Jessica asked, her antenna going up immediately. "Michael didn't tell you?" "We're going to talk about money tonight, about where it comes from, where it goes, and what happens when it stops flowing." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that there are some things about this family's financial situation that need to be clarified," I said calmly. "But first, let's enjoy dinner together. It might be the last peaceful meal we have for a while." During dinner, I watched Jessica pick at her food with obvious distaste, making little comments about how heavy everything was and how she usually preferred lighter, more sophisticated cuisine. Michael was too stressed about their financial crisis to pay much attention to the food, answering my questions about work and the children with distracted, one-word responses. "The pot roast is delicious, Dad," Michael said, though I could tell he was just being polite. "Thank you, son. Your grandmother's recipe. She always said that simple food made with love was better than fancy food made with pretension." Jessica looked up sharply. "That's an interesting philosophy. Very down-to-earth." "Yes, it is. Much like my entire approach to life, which has apparently caused some confusion in this family." "What kind of confusion?" Jessica asked, her voice taking on that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize. "The kind of confusion that leads someone to think they understand another person's situation when they actually don't understand anything at all." Michael set down his fork. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about assumptions, Michael. I'm talking about the assumptions your wife has made about me over the past 5 years and how those assumptions have shaped the way she treats me." Jessica's face was getting red. "I don't know what you're implying, Bob, but I've always treated you with respect." "Have you, Jessica? Is it respectful to call someone's carefully crafted gifts amateur? Is it respectful to exclude someone from family photos because they don't fit the aesthetic? Is it respectful to make constant comments about someone's house, their car, their clothes, their lifestyle?" "I was just being honest about my preferences," she said defensively. "Your preferences." "Yes, let's talk about your preferences. You prefer expensive houses to modest ones. You prefer luxury cars to practical ones. You prefer designer clothes to thrift store finds. You prefer restaurant meals to home cooking. What's wrong with having standards?" "Nothing at all, Jessica. as long as you can afford them. Michael leaned forward. Dad, what does this have to do with our financial problems? I smiled, feeling the satisfaction of a chess player who was about to deliver checkmate. Everything, son. It has everything to do with your financial problems. I stood up from the table and walked to my kitchen counter, where I had arranged several folders of documents that Amanda and James had prepared for me. Jessica, you've spent 5 years mocking my lifestyle, haven't you? My little house, my old car, my simple ways. I wasn't mocking you, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, you were. And do you know why? Because you live like someone who doesn't have any money, she said, her honesty finally overriding her attempt at politeness. Exactly. Because I live like someone who doesn't have any money. But Jessica, what if I told you that appearances can be deceiving? I opened the first folder and pulled out a document that Amanda had prepared, a summary of my net worth as of December 31st. What if I told you that the man you've been treating like an embarrassing burden is actually worth $247 million? The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's mouth fell open. Jessica stared at the document in my hands as if it were written in a foreign language. That's impossible, Jessica whispered. Is it? Michael, do you remember when you were in law school and suddenly received that scholarship that covered your last 2 years of tuition? Michael nodded slowly. That wasn't a scholarship. That was me paying your tuition through a fake scholarship program I created. Dad? And Jessica, do you remember when you and Michael were first married and Michael got that bonus from his law firm that allowed you to buy your house? Jessica was staring at me with growing horror. That wasn't a bonus. That was me funneling money through his firm to make it look like he'd earned it. I opened the second folder, revealing 5 years' worth of financial records. Every mortgage payment on your house, me. Every car payment for both of your vehicles, me. Every credit card bill when you overspent your budget, me. Every vacation, every shopping spree, every expensive dinner, every luxury purchase that made you feel superior to your poor father-in-law. All of it was funded by your poor father-in-law. Jessica's face had gone completely white. You're lying. Am I? Michael, call your mortgage company right now. Ask them where your payments have been coming from for the past 5 years. With shaking hands, Michael pulled out his phone and dialed the number. I watched his face as the customer service representative explained that his mortgage payments had been coming from something called the Mitchell Family Trust, and that the trust had been closed on December 26th. Why? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this? Because I love you, son. Because I wanted you to have a good life and I had the means to provide it. Because I thought that as long as you were happy and secure, it didn't matter whether you knew where the money came from. But you let us think we were successful on our own, Jessica said, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. I did. And do you know why? Why? Because I wanted to see what kind of people you really were. I wanted to know whether you would treat me with respect and kindness because I was family, or whether you would only value me if you knew I was rich. I looked directly at Jessica. And now I have my answer. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on my mantel. Jessica was staring at the documents spread across my table, her perfect composure completely shattered. Michael looked like he was going to be sick. So what happens now? Michael asked. Now, Jessica gets to decide what kind of person she really wants to be. What do you mean? I mean that your house will be foreclosed on in about 60 days unless someone makes those back mortgage payments. Your cars will be repossessed within the week unless someone covers the lease payments. Your credit cards are already maxed out, and without my support, you'll be bankrupt within the month." Jessica's head snapped up. "You can't do this to us. We have children." "I'm not doing anything to you, Jessica. I'm simply stopping doing things for you. There's a difference. But the children? The children will be fine. They don't need a $2.3 million house to be happy. They don't need luxury cars or expensive toys or designer clothes. What they need is love, security, and family members who treat each other with respect." "So this is blackmail," Jessica said, her voice bitter. "Change my attitude or lose everything." "No, Jessica. This is reality. This is what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you." I sat back down at my modest dining room table, in my discount store chair, wearing my thrift store clothes, and smiled at the woman who had spent 5 years treating me like I was beneath her notice. "You have a choice to make, Jessica. You can continue being the person who mocks handmade gifts and treats family members like embarrassments, in which case you'll discover what your life looks like when it's funded by your husband's actual salary. Or you can learn to appreciate the people who love you for who they are, not for what they can do for you." "This is insane," Jessica said, standing up from the table. "You're punishing us because I didn't like your Christmas gifts?" "I'm not punishing you for not liking my gifts, Jessica. I'm responding to 5 years of disrespect, dismissal, and deliberate cruelty. The Christmas gifts were just the final straw." Michael finally found his voice. "Dad, I had no idea about any of this." "About the money, about how you were supporting us, about how your wife treats me?" Michael's face crumpled. "I should have stood up for you. I should have stopped her from saying those things." "Yes, you should have. But you chose to support your wife's behavior instead of defending your father. And now you both get to live with the consequences of that choice." I opened the third folder, revealing legal documents that James had prepared. "These are the papers to transfer ownership of your house to a new buyer. I've already found someone who's willing to purchase it immediately for cash at fair market value." "You're selling our house?" Jessica shrieked. "I'm selling my house. The house I've been paying for, the house that's in my name through one of my holding companies. You've just been living in it." The color drained from Jessica's face as the full implications hit her. "We don't own anything, do we?" "You own whatever you've actually paid for with your own money. So, your clothes, some furniture, and about 3 months' worth of living expenses if you're careful." Jessica sank back into her chair, her perfect composure completely destroyed. "How long have you been planning this?" "I wasn't planning anything, Jessica. I was just trying to be a good father and grandfather while living quietly and humbly. You're the one who forced this situation by making it impossible for me to maintain my dignity while supporting your lifestyle." "But what about the children?" Michael asked desperately. "Where will they live? Where will they go to school? That depends entirely on the choices you and Jessica make right now." I pulled out the final folder, the one that contained my real offer. "I am prepared to continue supporting this family, but only under new conditions. First, Jessica will publicly apologize for her treatment of me, particularly her comments about my Christmas gifts." "Publicly?" Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. You'll post on all your social media accounts explaining that you were wrong to mock my handmade gifts, that you've learned they were created with love and skill, and that you're grateful to have a father-in-law who cares enough about his grandchildren to spend weeks creating something special for them." Jessica looked like she was going to be sick. "Second, there will be no more comments about my lifestyle, my house, my car, my clothes, or anything else related to how I choose to live. You will treat me with the same respect you would show any other family member. And if I refuse, then you'll learn what it's like to live on Michael's actual salary, which, by the way, is about $65,000 a year after taxes. Good luck maintaining your current lifestyle on that. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but I could see the calculation behind them. She was weighing her pride against her material comfort, her ego against her security. Third, I continued, you will encourage the children to appreciate handmade gifts and simple pleasures. You will teach them that the value of a gift comes from the love behind it, not from its price tag. You want me to lie to my children? I want you to teach your children the values that really matter. Love, respect, gratitude, humility, the values that you seem to have forgotten. Michael spoke up for the first time in several minutes. What about me, Dad? What do you want from me? I want you to be the man I raised you to be, Michael. I want you to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I want you to remember that your father loves you and deserves your respect, regardless of how much money he has or doesn't have. I do respect you, Dad. Do you? Because for 5 years, you've allowed your wife to treat me like a second-class family member. You've prioritized her comfort over my dignity. You've chosen to support her prejudices rather than defend your father. Michael's face was red with shame. You're right. I was a coward. I should have stood up for you. Yes, you should have. But, Michael, I don't want you to feel guilty about this. I want you to learn from it. I want you to understand that supporting your spouse doesn't mean enabling their worst behavior. What happens if we agree to your conditions? Jessica asked quietly. Then I will restore your financial support. Your mortgage will be current by tomorrow morning. Your car payments will be caught up. Your credit cards will be paid off. And you'll continue to live the lifestyle you've become accustomed to. And if we don't agree, then you'll have exactly 30 days to find alternative housing before the foreclosure proceedings begin. You'll need to return your leased vehicles and find transportation you can actually afford. And you'll discover what it's like to live within your actual means. Jessica was crying now, not the delicate tears of a woman trying to look pretty while emotional, but the ugly sobs of someone whose entire world was collapsing. I don't understand, she said through her tears. Why did you hide this from us? Why didn't you just tell us you were rich? Because I wanted to know who you really were, Jessica. I wanted to know if you would love and respect me for the person I am, or if you would only value me for what I could provide. But if you had told us... If I had told you, you would have treated me completely differently. You would have been sweet and respectful and accommodating, not because you respected me as a person, but because you knew I had money. Your behavior toward me would have been just as fake, just in the opposite direction. So this was all a test? No, Jessica. This was life. This was me trying to be a good father and grandfather while maintaining my dignity and my values. You're the one who turned it into a test by deciding that my worth as a person was determined by my apparent financial status. Michael leaned forward. Dad, what about Sophia and Tyler? How do we explain this to them? You tell them the truth, Michael. You tell them that their grandfather loves them very much and that he's been working hard to make sure they have everything they need. You tell them that the dollhouse and the truck were made with love, and that sometimes the most valuable gifts are the ones that come from the heart. And what about Christmas? Jessica asked. What about next year? Next year, if you've learned your lesson, we'll have a real family Christmas. One where handmade gifts are appreciated, where love matters more than money, and where everyone treats everyone else with respect. I looked at both of them, sitting at my modest dining room table, facing the ruins of their assumptions about me and about themselves. I'm not asking you to pretend to like everything I do, Jessica. I'm not asking you to become a different person. I'm asking you to treat me with basic human decency and to teach your children values that will serve them well in life. How long do we have to decide? Michael asked. You have until midnight tonight. After that, the offer expires and you'll be on your own. Jessica looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. If we agree to your conditions, will things really go back to normal? Better than normal, Jessica. Because for the first time, our relationship will be based on honesty instead of assumptions. They left my house at 10:30 p.m., promising to call me before midnight with their decision. I knew what they would choose. Jessica's pride was strong, but her attachment to her lifestyle was stronger. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. Dad, Michael's voice was subdued but clear. We accept your conditions. All of them. I'm glad to hear that, son. Jessica wants to talk to you. There was a pause. Then Jessica's voice came on the line, shaky but determined. Bob, I want to apologize. Not because I have to, but because I should have done it years ago. I was wrong to treat you the way I did. I was wrong to judge you based on your appearance instead of your character. And I was especially wrong to mock your gifts to the children. Thank you, Jessica. That means a lot to me. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I want to try to be better. I want to learn from this. Jessica, forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight, but I'm willing to give you the chance to show me that you mean what you're saying. What happens now? Now we start over. Tomorrow morning your mortgage will be current. Your financial crisis will be resolved. But more importantly, tomorrow we begin building a new relationship based on mutual respect. And the social media posts? You'll make them when you're ready. When they come from your heart, not from obligation. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for not giving up on us completely. I never gave up on you, Jessica. I just needed you to understand what really matters. After I hung up, I sat in my living room for a long time, thinking about what had just happened. I had gambled everything, my relationship with my son, my connection to my grandchildren, my role in their lives, on the hope that love and truth would ultimately prevail over pride and materialism. And I had won. But more importantly, my family had won. Michael had learned to stand up for what was right. Jessica had learned that true security comes from relationships, not from possessions. And Sophia and Tyler would grow up understanding that the most valuable gifts are the ones made with love. 3 days later, Jessica posted a photo on Instagram that made my heart swell with pride. It showed Sophia playing with her dollhouse and Tyler pushing his wooden truck across the floor. The caption read, I need to share something important with all of you. Last week I made a terrible mistake. My father-in-law gave my children beautiful handmade gifts for Christmas, a dollhouse and a truck that he spent weeks creating with his own hands. Instead of appreciating the love and skill that went into these gifts, I mocked them and called them amateur. I was wrong. These gifts are treasures, created by a man who loves his grandchildren enough to spend hours crafting something special just for them. I've learned that the value of a gift isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in love. Thank you, Bob, for teaching me what really matters. Handmade, family, love, grateful. The post received hundreds of comments from people sharing their own stories about meaningful handmade gifts, about the importance of family, about the difference between price and value. But the comment that mattered most to me came from my 7-year-old granddaughter, Sophia, who had her mother read it to her. I love my dollhouse, Grandpa. It's the most beautiful house in the world because you made it for me. 6 months later, our family has settled into a new rhythm. Michael and Jessica still live in their beautiful house, but now they understand where their security really comes from. Jessica has learned to appreciate simpler pleasures. She actually asked me to teach her how to make pot roast last month. Michael has found his backbone again, standing up for his values and his family. And my grandchildren? They treasure their handmade gifts above all their other toys. Sophia has created elaborate stories about the family that lives in her dollhouse. Tyler takes his truck everywhere, proudly telling anyone who will listen that his grandfather made it especially for him. But the biggest change has been in how Jessica treats me. She includes me in family photos now. She asks for my advice about the children. She's even started buying her clothes at thrift stores sometimes, saying she's learned to appreciate vintage finds over expensive labels. Last week, she surprised me with a gift of her own, a photo album she'd made by hand, filled with pictures of our family over the past year. On the first page, she'd written, "For Bob, who taught me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. Thank you for your patience, your wisdom, and your love. As I sit here in my modest living room, wearing my thrift store clothes and drinking coffee from my old Mr. Coffee machine, I realize that I'm richer than I ever imagined possible. Not because of the money in my bank accounts, but because I have a family that finally understands what really matters. The wooden toys I carved for Christmas are still Sophia and Tyler's favorites. They're a little worn now from months of love and play, but that just makes them more beautiful to me. Every scratch and ding represents hours of imagination, joy, and childhood wonder. And every time I see my grandchildren playing with them, I'm reminded that the most precious gifts are the ones that can't be measured in dollars and cents. They're measured in love, in time, in the willingness to put your heart into something and give it freely to someone who matters to you. Jessica learned that lesson the hard way, but sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that stick the longest, and sometimes the most expensive gifts are the ones that cost us our pride. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.